So welcome to the channel. Today we're just going to have kind of a general conversation about the different parts and the different makeup of chainsaws. You know, just to kind of give you more of a in-depth idea of what stuff is, how it works, why it is the way it is. So if you have any interest in chainsaws, stay tuned. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric, and today we're just going to kind of do a general overview of saws and the differences and the similarities as well. Every chainsaw is made up of a body, a chain, and a bar, right? So we all know that. And as you rev on the motor, it's going to drive that chain around, okay? Doesn't matter what bar it is, it's still going to work with the same theory. So that's where we start seeing a little bit of a difference. Now, one of the things that you're going to notice with chainsaws that are different is some of these have what they call a spur sprocket. And this is a spur sprocket. And it's simply, you take an E-clip with a screwdriver, that just pops out. You pull this off and that will come out. And when you're buying these, try to see if you can't buy the bearing right with them, because the center diameter is different in saws. And the ones that we sell the bearings right with them. And you want to make sure that the spur sprocket that you get is the one that's for your saw. And you can go online and find that out pretty quick. Now, when you're talking a spur sprocket, you have 6 and a 7 tooth. And a lot of people ask me, well, what's the difference? Is it certain chains or is it? No. One is for your 6 tooth is more for low end. If you're going to be doing a lot of blocking of the big stuff, I like to run the 6, which is the reduced gear. 7 is going to run your chain faster. That's the only difference. Your 7 is going to go faster, your 6 will go slower for low end power to high end power. Now, when you're talking, these are, and they come Oregon, steel, these are Silver Streak, Rotary carries them. But the other style of sprocket is the rim sprocket. And this is the rim sprocket. So I like these because instead of having to change these parts out, which hardly ever go wrong, all you're changing is just the rim sprocket. And the same idea holds true for that. And if we got a minute, quick minute, let me just, I'm pretty sure that this steel 44 is probably running the rim sprocket. You'll see them a lot on the heavier duty pro versions. The guys that are in the woods a lot, they're going to be going for the rim sprocket versus the spur sprocket. Because there's a lot of advantages to it. You can change them out pretty quick. And you want to keep track of that. You want to check the wear and tear on it every so often, or it'll just chew your teeth right up on your chain. Alright, so I was correct. So on this, you have the rim sprocket. It sits right in here. And you take the E-clip out, you take this washer off, and this comes out. And then you just take your new one, we get them by the 10-pack. You just take your new one and put it on, put your washer back on and your E-clip, and you're ready to go. So now you know of rim versus spur. See, this part of the housing that is with the spur sprocket stays there, and that hardly ever gets worn out. That's the brake and stuff in there. Alright, so those are the two differences in sprockets. What else can we show you that's different between them and the different stuff they have on your bigger saws? And I'm surprised I didn't see one on this one, but you have a decompression button, and this one here is for the steel, but this decompression button, it goes right into the head and it allows it to pull over easier, and once it starts it'll pop back in. So that's what they are, you know. And then you have your oiler, and your oiler is going to look very much like this. There's different oilers. You can see that. And they're going to sit back inside of here. And there's a spot in the, usually in the sprocket, where it catches and it goes around, but all of them will come out in this area. Right here is your oiler tube. That was. Right here is your oiler tube. And the way to find out whether your oiler is working or not is simply, the way I do it, excuse me, is I take a piece of cardboard and rev it right up and point the tip at that cardboard, and that'll tell you how much it's throwing. Now, if you have the chain too tight, it'll start heating up and wearing on the bar. So you want to have your chain tension not super tight, but not that loose either. You want to be able to pull up on that and just have it barely bring the bottom of the teeth up. But if you're not getting enough oil, enough lubrication, you can also have your bar get hot. So a lot of times your oiler will get plugged up. And what I found to be the big factor in that is a lot of these saws, you're tipping on the side. This one here is you add your chain oil, and this here you add your 50-to-1 fuel mixture. Is you don't clean this area off. I carry a couple thick bristled paintbrushes that I use just to do that area before I add any fuel or oil, so that I'm not getting contaminants into the tank. A lot of people don't, homeowners, because they don't know any better, so that they end up with plugging up the oilers. Same thing with this. You got your chain oil here and you got your fuel here, but you get a lot of sawdust and everything built up, and if it drops into there, it can get into the oiler system. And a lot of times what I've done in the past, I've been able to blow back and push stuff out the other way. All right, so with the bars and chains, you got to match the bar and chain to your saw. So like on every bar, you'll see it gives the information here, and not all bars are going to fit all chainsaws. So you got to make sure you get the correct bar for the right saw that you're working with. And that's pretty easy to find out. I mean, like these Oregons, these will fit the Dolmar, Holmanite, Husqvarna, Johnson Red, Partner, Pioneer, and even the Red Max. But it's got to be a certain size. You don't want to go putting too big a bar onto a machine that hasn't got a lot of cc's, because you're just not going to be able to turn all that. So when you're ordering your bars and chains, I recommend to either go through a dealer or look them up online. If you have like a steel 044 and you know you have a rim sprocket, then a lot of times you can just punch that in and it'll bring up all the different bars that are available, all the different chains. I go with a low profile anti-kickback just for the homeowner. For you guys that are in the woods all the time, you already know what you need. So that's why I'm going to kind of jump over that. But when it comes to ordering the spur sprockets, rim sprockets, bars, chains, you got to know the saw that you're working on and what is recommended and what is required in order to get the right parts. Now, the other thing that you have, the chain brake is on all of them, anti-kickback, so that if you're A lot of guys years ago were having the saws like this where they would catch them right in the head. This here, if it kicks back, it locks the chain onto that spur sprocket, the drum. On the spur or on the rim, it's that drum that we looked at before. So the key things to know and understand about your chainsaws is you need the correct bar and chain, you need the correct sprocket. If you want to go with, you're cutting a lot of logs like on landing where you have somebody bringing a load of logs for you, or you're handling bigger stuff, I would go with a 6-tooth because it's a low end power where you're going to be in the meat most of the time. If you're going to be doing lemon, small pieces, you can bump up to the 7. It just runs the chain a lot faster. But other than that, just general maintenance. You know, when you get ready to store these machines, what I recommend is if it's going to be in storage very long, let it warm up. And Jason mentioned it. Let it warm up, and then when you get to a certain temp, dump all the excess gas out and let the carburetor run dry. That way you know that the system is dry and it's not going to varnish anything inside and get particles in there. And always start with fresh fuel every year when you get ready to start. If you're not doing regular maintenance on these, then you need to have a shop like ours where you can drop them off and we can go through and replace the plug, air filter, give it a tune-up. You know, we've talked about, I'm not going to go into detail on this video, but how to adjust the carburetor, you know, and why they don't want you adjusting the carburetor because of the EPA. But with the jets, turn them all the way in, back them out, turn in half, each one of them, the low and the high. Remember, the low is just for the idle, nothing more. It's not for rev in or, no, just simply let it idle and adjust that to where it sounds where it's running pretty good. To us that have a trained ear, you know, we can hear it. But, and then with the high, that's the same thing. Is when you pour on the thing, if it sounds sluggish, it means it's not getting enough gas. So open it a little bit by turning it counterclockwise. And just keep, I've got a gauge that is touchless. It will tell me how many RPMs it's running at. But most times I can hear it, you know, so. And then the other thing is wearing personal protective gear when you're handling saws. You need, if you're, you know, it looks goofy, but I wore a hard hat for many years as a miner, so I'm used to it. But a hard hat, muffs, a visor type where it keeps the stuff from hitting you in the face, chaps for your legs, because they will, it's not if, it's when, it's going to catch your pant leg, because you're starting to get tired. And understand your limits. If you start to get tired with the saw, stop. Because most accidents happen when somebody is exhausted. When they just keep running, going, until all of a sudden the saw gets feeling heavier and it gets lower, and you know what I mean. So on that note, hopefully you guys learned something, and there's a couple other neat tools out there when you're working on your, if you want to remove your sprockets and stuff like that, your piston stop, it just threads in, and then take it all the way down, and then depending upon whether you got to take it out clockwise or counterclockwise, turn it around by hand till you hit the stop, and then do it. The other way of doing it, get that out, is simply rope. You know, whatever rope you have on hand. I like to keep this and then just take and start stuffing it down into there so that the piston comes up against the rope and it stops it. Don't stick a screwdriver or anything else in there. Just rope or a piston stop. So on that note, thanks so much for watching the channel, and hopefully you learned something. And if I didn't cover something that needs to be covered, speak up, and I'll definitely go into more detail on that. So on that note, you guys have a great day.